Hello everyone and welcome to this short video on English Language Paper 2, Section B, Transactional Writing. Before we get started on today's question, I want to remind you of both language papers, the reading and the writing sections. Should you want to make more notes or look at this in more detail, I suggest you pause the recording until you are ready to continue. If not, we'll continue with today's question. This series of videos will go through each question from the reading and writing sections of paper 1 and paper 2, so you feel super confident before sitting your exams. For English Language Paper 2, Section B, Transactional Writing, you'll be asked to answer one writing question. This will allow you to produce a written piece for a specified purpose, audience and form, giving your own perspective on the theme that has been introduced to you in Section A. We suggest you spend about 45 minutes on this question, perhaps 55 with extra time, and that includes some planning time and some proofreading and improvement time at the end of your piece. Here we have an example question. Gender stereotypes no longer exist in the 21st century. Write a speech for a school assembly arguing your viewpoint. So with all of the questions we've looked at, we have the statement for you to respond to and the task for you to complete. If we look at what AQA want in terms of the speech, they'd like a clear address to an audience, effective and fluently linked sections to indicate some kind of sequence, there's rhetorical indicators to kind of address an audience throughout the piece, and some kind of clear sign off. Okay, so here we've got our purpose, which is to persuade students of your viewpoint about gender stereotyping. Your tone is going to be formal, but perhaps less formal than perhaps the essay. It's going to have to be something appropriate for a school assembly. So you've got to decide on, first of all, your positioning and the exact audience that you are talking to. And this might change some of your choices. So for these speeches then, that clear address to the audience with an introduction linked to the question and purpose. As with all other questions, I don't want you to tell me what your viewpoint is. I want you to show me what your viewpoint is. By the use of your language in that introduction, I should know which side of the argument you sit on. There should be at least 3 ideas that support your argument, again with the strongest last. The main reason for this is for that counter-argument, should you wish to include a counter-argument to then dismiss something later on, you have got your strongest point at the end, so your audience goes away with that final piece of information, that viewpoint of yours right at the end of the piece. And then, as always, a clear conclusion that gives a brief summary of what you have said and hopefully some kind of call to arms. What do you want your listener to do as a result of listening to your speech? Here is a reminder again of the assessment objectives that we need for question 5. So AO5 is your content and your organisation, thinking about not only your ideas and your viewpoint, how you put those across within your layout, within your paragraphing, to make sure we have that clear but also then compelling and convincing response. We also have our AO6, that's your spelling, punctuation and grammar, and while you can see here there's a lot of focus on security and accuracy in those things, we also need to be looking at where we are using them for effect. How are we using them to keep our reader or our audience, in this case, engaged all the way through our response. So let's look at this example and see where the student has made this speech really engaging and if there's anywhere else we think they could improve. Do gender stereotypes still exist? Absolutely. Good morning everyone. Today I want to talk about something that affects all of us, whether we realise it or not. Gender stereotypes. Some people say that in the 21st century these stereotypes no longer exist, but I strongly disagree. Just because we've made progress doesn't mean the problem has disappeared. Let's start with something simple, toys. Walk into any toy shop and you'll still see pink cars for girls and blue ones for boys, dolls and kitchen sets for girls, action figures and cars for boys. Why? Are we saying that about school subjects? Even now, some people think science and maths are boy subjects, while art and drama are for girls. This kind of thinking puts pressure on students to follow paths they might not even enjoy, just to fit in with what's expected of their gender. It doesn't stop there. In the workplace, women are still underrepresented in leadership roles and STEM careers. Men, on the other hand, are often judged for choosing careers in childcare or nursing. These stereotypes limit everyone. They tell us what we should be instead of what we want to be. Even in everyday life, Boys are told to man up and not cry, while girls are expected to be polite and quiet. These messages are harmful. They teach us to hide our true feelings and stop us from expressing ourselves freely. Yes, we've come a long way. More people are speaking out and there's more awareness than ever before. But that doesn't mean the problem is solved. Gender stereotypes are still around, just sometimes in more subtle ways. So what can we do? We can start by challenging these ideas when we see them. We can support each other in doing what we love, no matter what anyone says. And most importantly, we can be brave enough to be ourselves. Thank you for listening. So you can see where this has clearly got that opening, where we know what viewpoint they follow. We've got some clear ideas that flow through their speech, building on all of the information that they have included. And at the end, we've got this kind of call to action, this call to arms, where they're giving us something that they can, what we as an audience can take away at the end of our speech. Perhaps this student might go on to use more ambitious vocabulary, or perhaps some more kind of forceful, aggressive vocabulary to get their point across, but they have to still stay formal. So I think this student's done a really good job. And finally, just as the other question 5 videos in this series, we want to think about that proposed kind of speech structure. Definitely something to have thought about whilst you've got your ideas before you start writing, to see which of these ideas fit particularly well with that particular text type or that audience, and how can you manipulate some of these to work for the task. So that descriptive hook, remember we are kind of describing a scene to our audience or to our reader, in this case our audience, and we're expressing our view. We are not just saying whether you agree or disagree with the statement, you are implying which side you are on by using your language choices and your tone, and perhaps asking your reader to imagine, or this in case your speaker, to imagine a scene. You think clearly about your position. Which position are you taking on this particular given issue? What is the overview? Why is this an important topic? Why are they relevant to your debate? And therefore, if they are relevant to the modern society, why is this something you would like your audience to be thinking of now? Why is it important that they listen to your speech? And what would you like them to do moving forward? Brings you on to your now section. You have the problem, you have your viewpoint, you are now going to offer that solution. It's not simply enough to describe the issue, but you're going to give some kind of call to arms, call to action. You're going to give them some kind of message that you want them to take away with them at the end of your speech. You're encouraging to do something once they have listened. So hopefully that has helped you with your ideas of structuring and writing speeches. Hopefully you will join us for the other videos on the other text types that you could get for question 5.